Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. I thought I'd go through a little quick tutorial now. Of course, we're looking at a 5K chart here, but in our most recent download, I provided you with functions that basically give you output readings of, in this particular case, the D omega converted, or the DOC as we like to call it. And I want to show you how you can utilize those within your own customized program. So first, the basic thing is, well, how do you even get to programming from a chart? Anytime you have an indicator in front of you, you can just right-click on the indicator, and then right here where it says Edit Easy Language, you can go straight to that, and it will open up Easy Language program, which looks a lot like this. So in this particular case, we happen to be looking at the DOC cyan function, but I'm going to show you real quick how we would go ahead and actually create one. So all you would do is you'd cruise over here to File, and you would say you want to create a new one. And in this particular case, we're going to create an indicator because let me just show you this. So if I open up, and here's the functions. So these are what's going to download. You can't click these because they're going to show up as copyright protected, but you don't need them anyway, because all we're going to be doing is calling the information that comes from each of these. So basically, we're just going to be, let the program do its work, and it's just going to give us what the reading for the cyan is. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead, open, we create a new, and in this particular case, we're going to create an indicator because that's what it is. And we're just going to go ahead and call it, well, let's do a couple of underscores, because if you put the underscores in there, it goes to the top of your library. And we'll just call it a test DOC FNCT function for the heck of it. Now, you can make a little note as to what it is. You can put where it can go for chart analysis, radar screens. You can also describe how many plots, blah, 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 blah. A lot of that's not necessary. You just push OK. And then, boom, there it is right here. So it's just blank language. Now, I've taken the liberty of already saving the information, so I'm just going to pop it up real quick. Okay, so for instance, if we want to use the information that comes from here, and in this particular case for an indicator, we just basically want to plot it onto our screen. And the language to do this kind of thing is very simple. I'm just going to copy it from over here, and I'm just going to put, here's what you do 2 forward slashes, and then we're just going to call it function test. Okay, and by putting those 2 little forward slashes, it basically is just a note to yourself, and it doesn't show up. You can also use the bracket bars. Those look like these, and whatever you put in between that, you can describe for yourself all sorts of things. So fun test, and it's not, you can go on forever describing how you got to where you are or what it's trying to do. But in this particular case, this is how easy the program can be. All right, so we want a line that's going to plot the number that comes from the DOC green. So in this case, we just call it plot1. And in order, anytime you need to learn about these, you can click the definition of a plot. Okay, that will pop up this little wizard right here, and it will tell you everything you need to do, but more importantly, what it does, it shows you how it should be written. So in this case, plot1, you could then put parenthesis volume, the color, a default, then you can also put where it places or how many decimal points it does. So anytime you come to a colored word, you can always, same thing like right here, it'll give you the definition of green. Well, what that will do is it'll give you a definition of all the colors. So that's just a quick little primer to know it. But here's the key on this. So we put plot1, we put a parenthesis. So underscore underscore DOC underscore green, that is the name of the function. Okay, so right here you can see the DOC steel is written this way, and if you didn't know those, you could just go back to the thing and then you could see on the function. Okay, well that's how it's described. And if you start to type it in, it will actually show up on the little board. For instance, if I went ahead and did it right here again, and I do DOC underscore and I start typing it, there usually a little box will appear underneath it, particularly when you get, I think it's because I'm at the end of a line. If I had started a new line, it will do it. But anyway, we do the DOC green, comma, and then in this particular case, we want to then call it something so that when you push the info window, it shows up as the words green DOC. And sometimes when you see me put up a chart, you'll see that they have a lot of unusual names. I think the orange is the X812, and then the color is green. Okay, so that's lines 1 and 2, or at least line 1. Let's go ahead and copy the others, and we'll just put them here, and I'll show you what the rest of this program would look like. Now, there it is. That is the complete DOC. Because all the huge math is done in creating all of these by calling up the function, and that's what you're doing. You're calling the number that is created by the green, you're calling the red number, you're calling the cyan number, the steel number, the orange number. Now, if you want to add the fixed lines, you could do that, but you would have to create a variable, and if any of these things don't make sense to you, then you could do it. I think I refer to the one as the top line for the plus 25, and you would just go top line, and you could, well, actually we call it 25, so you just actually go ahead and give it that value, and then you would do there. And then in this particular case, you would just go plot, and we'll just call it plot 15 for the fun. Well, we can call it plot 25 and just go up from there because it doesn't really matter. And then what you would do is you would just put in top line, and the value of top line is going to show up there, and then you would just do comma, and you could just call it overbought, and you could draw the parenthesis, and then we can call that, in this case we call it well, it's purple right now, so I think that would be dark magenta, I believe is the correct term for it. And then you always put a little semicolon at the end. So what that would do now is that would give you each of the lines for the DOC, and then it would plot the 25 line. And then once you come up here, the little check mark right here, you can push F3, or you can do this, and then it will tell you, this little window will pop up down here. Let me slide it up, and it will tell you if you have any mistakes in your program. And that will always let you know if you've done something wrong. Okay, so in this particular case now, we've created this program. So we might as well just take it to the chart now and insert it. So we would just go and right-click the chart and scroll down to an Insert Analysis Technique. And we'll go to an indicator, and we called that double underscore, well, we gotta scroll up here because I think it was double underscore test. Let me pause real quick and locate where that one is exactly on this. All right, that didn't take long, it was right in front of us. So it's right here, it's double underscore test function. The more underscores you put, the higher up it goes, depending on where you are. So in this particular case, we would click test function, we select OK, and this would pop up like any normal indicator would. So in this particular scaling, we're gonna go with number 4 sounds good. That might put us on top. Let's see. Let me close this real quick. Let's find out what our settings are on these right now. The extreme is at subgraph 7. Okay, so that's perfect. So 4 should be good if we utilize. This one should be 3. Okay, perfect. So we'll do 4. That will put it right underneath our current subgraph so we can compare. You can also slide it directly over. There's nothing wrong with that. So insert analysis technique. We're going to go back to our TS function. And so our test function is right here. And then we're just going to say, okay, scaling is just for your subgraph. If you wanted it over your price, you would push there. This just puts the price tags on the right-hand side. You could put them on the left if you wanted. There's no restriction there. There's no real inputs with this program that we did because it's just basically plotting the lines, whatever that information was. We have one fixed line that's going to be 25, and the other ones are going to be what the DOC readings are. And then down here, lift it up so you can see it, it just says OK. And we're just going to click OK. And the chart will then calculate, and unfortunately I've picked a 5K, so it's going to take a couple of seconds. And through the magic of time, voila, So it just pops up here, and you can see that it's in the subgraph. Now, you'll notice that, oh, it is so much brighter up here. Because what I've done is, within the program itself, so we can go to Format, under Style, what I've done is, so for the green, I weight them a little thicker so they stand out. Now that depends on your screen brightness. Obviously for when I'm putting them on videos, it's important for you to see them a little bit more clearly. So I just emphasize them a bit more than normal. If I wanted to change one of them to a histogram or something, like if I was doing the shakeout one that says histogram, then I would make sure that I click the histogram so it showed up as a histogram rather than as a straight line, because right now it's just going to show up as a line. Okay, and then we just push OK. And boom, you see how much darker they got instantly like that. Now, you'll notice the only line that's in here is, ooh, there it is, the 25. Now, if I put the 25 first in our program, it would show up first. If I wanted to have, for instance, the red or blue, you would want to pick the plot number that you want first, and that will show up because it goes in order. So as I've done them in order of the number of plots, that's how it shows up. That simple program, because all we've done is call it, we didn't have to have any of the calculations, because behind this DOC green is almost 1,400 lines of code that have been condensed into just writing this simple word. That's how fabulous this is. And it gives you complete capability now to then make comparisons in strategies or anything else just by calling that little word of the DOC green, red, whichever color you want or don't want. And if we compare them, you can see that from this standpoint, let's pick an extreme, like where this green line is. So for instance, if I scroll up just enough, I think I have to raise them up a little bit higher so that they can be seen, because the chart goes down at the bottom. Let's see if I can get all the way up here. There we go, we can see them. So you see the readings that say green DOC, red DOC, cyan, steel. It comes up just like I wrote them. You can change that to anything else. You could just put green DOC. You don't even have to put DOC. You could just put whatever you put between the parentheses will show up there just like that. So we're reading, for instance, since we have the green up there, negative 673. If we slide up to the other one, oh, there it is, green, negative 673. Let's go over to another green line right over here. Let's look at what the cyan, negative 384. If we scroll up to here, negative 384. So it reads those same numbers exactly, only this time you're in control of it and you're able to customize it. And this is going to be the case that you'll have that for the shakeout. You'll be able to do it with extreme, and then you can create all the different situations. You'll even be able to have one for the MBI as well as the GAM. And it will give you the flexibility of like creating a strategy that maybe compares something unique that isn't necessarily for the broader futures charts, but maybe you're doing something specific to a type of future or a currency that you happen to like, and or you want to play with the way the stops are in a strategy. Complete flexibility. Same thing's going to happen with the ABM. You'll have that flexibility. And I mentioned that in the Skype chat where, okay, say you don't like where the ABM green line is, then maybe you want it to be a little bit lower. Well, when I give you the fib level function, you'll be able to go in there and then say, okay, the ABM, maybe I want it to be 20% lower than it is. So you would multiply. You don't want to do division when you're dealing with these things. You always want to do multiplication. You would multiply it by 80%. So 80% of that value would be 20% lower. And so you could then make, flexible adjustments. What I don't recommend is trying to average or do anything to like the DOC lines or the shakeout lines, because they're racial representations of broader algo sets, and if you just try and average them, you've completely lost what they're doing. They're giving us predictive models, and the minute you try and average it, you're going to take that away. So that would be my only caution about these. Just call the numbers as they are and look for the patterns that are created within the setups that we've shown over and over again, and that will give you the most reliability for it going forward. And I'll put that back up just so you can see them, and that's all it takes is just that simple little line, and they're going to appear in this purple color, and that indicates that they are a function. But you never go to the actual function library. That's not necessary and won't work because it's protected. But this way you can get all of my code and utilize these in your own programs without actually having to have the individual language. It's already provided into the library for you, so it makes it very easy. So hopefully that helps a little bit of understanding, and we can get into some of the more complex if-then statements that you can do. But anytime you want to look at the TradeStation library, I recommend merely going to the library, and you can literally open, well, you can just pick a variety of programs. So for instance, if you want other indicators to get an idea how the language works, you don't have to pick mine. You can just go to the ones that they offer, like, advanced decline line. You can pick any of these and you can just click them, and they'll give you like average true range, which we use for a lot of basic stuff. This is what it looks like. So it kind of teach you what you need to know. It's very simple, kind of basic, but that's perfect. That's why it's called easy language, and makes it so that anyone can do that. And you can do the same thing with strategies. They have what are called wrappers, where it'll give you this kind of information. You can fill in a bunch of different variables with it. In this particular case, it just created a TR length as a word and picked 14 periods for the length right here. And those are inputs that you can change. And then it makes it equal to 0, and then it runs this function, the average true range, which you can always just right-click and get the definition for average true range, and it will give you what average true range is. Okay, so it takes the distance between, and you can read through it, and you can do this with all of them in the library to get a better understanding of how any of those standard indicators work. So, as always, trade well, and feel free to ask me any questions on the Skype chat.